Oh, we're recording. What's up, guys? Folcon here to bring you another Folcon's 5. You've been asking for it, I'm sure, in your head. I know I have. And as you all know, I really love the game Smite, which is it's PC-only video game that you can download. I think it's free, so if you have a PC, I would recommend downloading it. I'm sure you've seen it before and stuff, or at least if you follow our channel, Jack and I have played a couple games of it. It's a really fun game. It's kind of like League of Legends. It's a MOBA, but the unique part is that it's from first person, not top down, which I like a lot better. I played League of Legends a little bit. I didn't like the whole top down perspective. Made it kind of hard to get where my character was going, direction wise, and figure out what was actually happening. But which is why I like Smite. It is, 3D in first person or third person perspective, and actually really feels like you are controlling, the different gods. And that's kind of the premise of the game, is bringing together a bunch of gods from all different mythologies to fight each other, and it's awesome. And I would like to bring you my top 5 of those gods. Now, I'm not really basing this off of lore, mostly because these are, they're all different mythological gods, and from different mythologies from all over the world, like Mayan and Egyptian and Greek and Roman and all that fun, Chinese. So, the lore is just your basic lore for those things, and that'd be kind of just judging lore. So I'm not going to do that, but rather how I like to use them in combat, and whether I like them or not. They're all, I tried to include one of each type of character. I don't think I hit that, but I don't know. These are my top 5 gods in Smite. And also, I hope you like it. I changed it so that, I took some time, and actually took some time and effort, and got gameplay footage for you to watch, because I'm just that committed to you guys. And enjoy. Well, my number 5 is Folcon, the god of storms. As you can see, he's this snake-like being who is the master of wind and typhoons and stuff like that. He's a really fun god to play with. His passive, he gains mana for each level, or he gains attack for each scaling of his mana, which is pretty awesome. He's one of my favorite gods. His basic attack's kind of just that wind attack that comes out. And starting off with his number 3 move, he summons down a typhoon, and it attacks or attaches to enemies. So it's an area effect where it does damage to the ground and people underneath it. But once you go underneath it, it becomes attached to you. So even if you leave it, if enemies leave the typhoon, it'll still be attacking them and hurting them for a little short amount of time. His number 1 move we just saw there. It is a quick burst type move where he just blows out a quick burst of wind, which is deals a lot of damage late game, and pretty good for early game, just closing gaps. See, just did like a third of his health late game. And then his number 4, I think this is number 4. They're very good in used in conjunction. Number 4 is that he summons a huge wraith-like figure of himself to breathe down on enemies and deal massive damage. That's his ultimate. So in case you're wondering what I am, I'm referring to the keys that you press to use these moves. And so number 4, there's 4 moves. Each god has 4 moves. His 4th move, which is his ultimate move, is that one. Does massive damage in a line. Really good when enemies are in a close quarter and facing each other. Right there, that's his number 2 move, which he uses to get away and kind of run from battle, or you can also advance into battle with it. And all of his moves used in conjunction are really well. You can deal massive damage with your 1. 3 does a lot of damage too. It's probably his most potent and most feared, because once you see that Cyclone come down, you stay away from it because it can deal massive damage to you. And especially with his 4, when it makes it hard to see, and his 4 is just devastating. You do not want to get hit by that, especially in the middle. And he can close gaps and run away pretty easily. So my number 4 is Loki, who is, he's a jungler, while Kukulkan was a mid laner generally, or a solo laner, usually mid laner. Loki is a jungler. He's primarily good at backstabbing enemies and killing enemies and that kind of thing. He's a very good stealth. He relies on stealth, not just brute combat, which makes him a very interesting play style, because you can't just go in thinking you're gonna, beat up the enemies. You have to actually approach it from a stealth-like standpoint. He's very quick and very mobile, with his different moves giving him different abilities that will help him in that regard. And he can also deal massive damage on a single strike, or on single opponents. He's not very good at facing a lot of them at the same time, but if you give him a single target, he will just destroy them. He's got a distraction technique, which is that one right there, which allows him to put up a distraction type thing. That's his number 2 move, and all minions and stuff like minions, like Cyclops and stuff, will attack that instead of him, which allows him to attack gods and stuff without the minions getting angered at him, or at least trying to kill him for a little bit. Helps, especially in that start phase of doing that. As you can see, his number 1 right there, he turned invisible, and he gains increased movement speed when he uses his number 1 and becomes invisible, and can deal massive damage upon coming out of that invisibility when he attacks. And so that is right there again. Just become invisible, become really fast, and when used in conjunction with his 3, which increases his damage and also increases a poison, or he poisons the enemies when he hits too, after using 3. It can be just deadly, dealing huge amounts of damage, especially if you get him on the back, and is just, as you can see, just completely deadly. He just gets in there and kills people. It's also kind of good for getting out of binds, or for sneaking up on enemies, and right there was his ultimate, where he can teleport to a location, and if there's a god in that location, he will attack the god. So you boom, stun them, and deal massive damage to them, which makes him very, very deadly if you ever just get near him. He can turn invisible, use his 3, and he can also use his move to get away. Any of his moves, really, to get away. He can use the 2 to get away from minions. He can use his 1 to get away from enemy gods by turning invisible and running away, as you can see there. He can use his ultimate to either close gaps and deal massive damage while stunning the enemy, or you can use it to run away from enemies. I've used it a couple times to get away, and it's just amazing how much damage, especially late game. You do not want to face him alone, and you have to get the drop on him, which is hard when he can turn invisible and completely surprise you and deal just massive damage, and it's just insane. As he does crits like no one's business, dealing massive criticals and just doing a lot of damage. Again, he's not as good against a lot of people at once. If he's facing multiple opponents, it can be a little bit harder for him, just because he is better for single opponent targets. But he has great mobility, which makes him a great jungler, and that's why he's my number 4 on this list, because he can just do a lot of damage very quickly and then run away. That's some key strategy with him, getting in and then getting right back out, which is why I like playing as him so much. Alright, number 3 is Poseidon. Poseidon I like because he has a passive which allows him to gain movement speed for every basic attack he uses. There's his basic attack. He sends out a water strike, which, I mean, he isn't always the most powerful god. When he's used by someone who knows him well and can use him well, he just becomes a destructive, unstoppable force, he just becomes insane. He's a mid laner, or a solo laner. He can really do both pretty well, and he has a lot of area of effect attacks, which are really good for clearing minions and trapping gods, or just dealing damage to a lot of gods. So his number 1 is a wave he sends out, just a basic line attack, which can do a lot of damage pretty quickly, especially as it ranks up. His number 3, as you saw right there, was a Whirlpool, but right there it also pushes enemies back when he uses it, which is good. There's his Whirlpool, which is an area of effect. The Whirlpool happens and enemies in the Whirlpool take damage. It also slows them, which is good, and allows them to not be able to jump and stuff. So people, like if he's facing a knife or something that can usually jump their way out of, or get away from certain sort of attacks, it negates that. His number 2 is we can see right there, which makes his trident become faster, and also allows 3 strokes to come out. So if you can get all 3 of those onto an enemy, it does 3 times the damage that it normally does, dealing just massive damage, which is very good for him. Or as you can see right there, it's also good for clearing minions, but the main use is against gods, just clearing them out quickly. His ultimate is called Summon the Kraken, in which he summons out the Kraken, a monstrous beast, and dealing a huge amount of damage over an area, especially in the middle, where it stuns enemies too if it hits. So you want to hit enemies with it in the middle, but it also does a lot of damage on the outside too. The cool thing about him is that each of his moves, except for his number 2, which is his speed, his attack buff, use up a little bit of his meter, which slows him down. So the more you attack, the more you build up the speed in the meter, but if you use moves, then you start to slow down. So you want to take enemies down quickly, as you saw just with his 1 and ultimate. He took out Ra in 2 hits, which is just amazing, especially this is later in the game, so it's harder to compare, but they just deal massive moves. He can just deal massive damage and take up a good amount of hits too, and he becomes very speedy and hard to catch. He doesn't have necessarily a move to get away, just his speed in general is pretty good, so that's why he is number 3 for the massive usefulness. He's probably my favorite solo laner. Number 2, Ymir. Now, a lot of people don't like supports, which is understandable, because the main job of a support role, which is what Ymir does as a guardian, is to soak up damage but not deal out a lot of damage. He's there to help get other people kills, so his main job is to get assists. And Ymir is by far my favorite support, because his moves and his abilities just go in so well with that, not focusing on getting kills rather, but getting assists, which is why in these videos I don't get as much kill, mostly because he isn't meant to get kills, so it was harder in the early game. But he has a lot of health and can actually do a fair amount of damage for a support. Right there's number 2, where he sends out icicles, an icicle shard thing in a line, which becomes a very good minion clear ability. Right there's his walls, and there's also his frost breath and ultimates. You just saw all of his moves right there. So he's got the shards, which are good at clearing waves of minions. As you can see, just took them out, which is very good. He's early game and in the mid game, and is probably, can also do a lot of damage to other gods. His number 3 is a Frost Breath, which freezes enemy, which makes him very good since he's in the support or the duo lane with a hunter usually, when hunters' main jobs or hunters mainly deal lots of damage very quickly. Although they are sometimes harder to hit with because they deal it in a small line. So his freeze ability, freezing an enemy, just is so good at allowing, your hunter to get a couple criticals on them and secure a kill, which is also why you got to be very or talk to your hunter a lot, because if they're not aware that you're about to freeze the person, they might back off, and you find yourself just freezing a god for a couple seconds and being alone with that god, which can be hard. But he can take up a lot of damage. He's got his freeze breath, which can also work well when he's running away. His ultimate, he makes everything kind of like cool down as it is around him in a huge area and dealing tons and tons of damage the longer you let it charge up. So if you get a frozen enemy and then charge it up all the way, it just becomes insane how much damage he can do, and that's where he really gets kills. As you can see, he's beating up Ra right here, or I'm beating up Ra, which isn't typical, but that's because I had already gotten a lot of kills in this late game. There's his ultimate one more time. And also one thing I didn't really talk about was his walls. His wall ability, he can bring up these walls, which are really good for either trapping enemies or barring them off. If you're running low on health, or your duo laner is running low on health, bring them up, give yourself some breathing room. Now, before I get to my number 1 god, which if you know me and have played with me, you'll probably already know, I just want to go over some of my honorable mentions for this list. I don't normally do this, but there are so many amazing gods to choose from that they really are very well balanced. It was hard to choose one over another. It's more just how you play and play style. For instance, one of my honorable mentions is Nuwa, who Jack loves and always uses, but I'm not as big of a fan of Nuwa, but I do include her because she is a very good character and can be very good. My other honorable mentions are Thanatos, Folcon, Scylla, Apollo, Xbalanque, Bellona, Chalk, and Zeus. Now, without further ado, my number 1 is Neith, or Neith, or however you say it. I say Neith, sometimes I say Neith. Now, this god is a hunter. Hunters, as I said before in Ymir's, are in the duo lane with the supports and deal massive damage very, very quickly to single targets. They're kind of like junglers, except that they're more flexible. They're usually ranged versus melee, like junglers are, and their main role is to stay in the duo lane. They usually do a lot of damage through criticals, and that's really what they specialize, is doing criticals, and that's what you want to build around. Neith is the only god that I actually do my own build on, as you saw before, and usually I just use the auto build for their items and stuff, but for her, I like her, or I try to build my own. She's the only one I do that with. So as we can see right there, she can do a backflip, which, as I said with Poseidon's, is negated in his whirlpool, but is a great way to get out of danger, and also produces this broken weave, as you can see right there, which allows her other abilities to do extra effects. Her number 1, which is a stunning move, that's also a line move. It's a line move that goes forward and stuns enemies in there. Is very good and can do will cause an explosion if it goes through one of her broken weaves left behind either by an enemy god that had died or by her backflip right there, which is great for minion clearing. As you can see, just took out that whole line of minions, and just, in her backflip and then her shot, because it does double damage on the because it does 100% of the damage to that whole area. So if you already hit them with her number 1, it also hits them again with the same, with 100% of the damage. Her number 2, which we saw right there, called, I forget what it's exactly called, but it's great for getting health back. It targets an area, and if it hits up to 3, or it can hit up to 3 different enemies to bring back some health. Right there we saw her number 1, which is her stun technique, which she traps people in a webbing, and is a very, very, very good move, especially later in the game. If someone is trying to run, you just hit them with that one, and boom, it does massive damage and stuns them for a couple seconds, allowing you to deal the last bit of damage to them to get the kill. It's great for securing kills, and it just makes her a very, very dangerous opponent that you do not want to get too close to. There's tons of times when I am using her when I get like ganked by the jungler or something, and I'm able to backflip out of the way and then stun them with that and get the kill. There's so many times and they just don't know what happened. And here's some more examples of her number 2 move, which does some damage, not as much as her other moves. It does a little bit of damage, slows them down, gets her back some health, and can be very useful when you are in a long laning situation, especially at the start. It's something you rely on a lot. As you can see here, basic really does massive damage, especially with criticals, and just that's really what she is so good at, is her basic attack just does so much damage, especially in conjunction with her other moves. Use her 1, stun an enemy, especially if you cartwheeled and already, or if you get that through a broken weave and deal double damage to them with that, as right there, she can just secure the kill so well. And the last thing to solidate that secure of a kill is what we just saw right there. Her ultimate is a shot. She fires a shot that charges up for a little bit, and can target anyone within sight of any god within sight of not just her but any other god, as long as she or some other god can see them, or a ward or a minion or whatever, she can target them, and it deals massive damage to them as she charges it up and fires. So it's great for if enemies are running away, you're just like, don't know why you're trying to run, and just blast them. Her attack speed does really well. As you can see under my build, this was actually a really fun game for me. It was a practice match against Rob, but it was a lot of fun because I actually had so much time that I actually went and killed every single camp. There's 6 camps surrounding the area, and I kill every single camp with her just to kill some time, so that I can show you the build that I have on her, which I don't think we'll be able to see well, but she just, right there. So I brought Deathbringer to bring her with the blue talisman, the ninja boots, the Devourer's gauntlets, the executioner, the rage, and the Deathbringer, to deal lots of damage, lots of criticals, and get her speed up a little bit. When she has the damage buff, she does so much, it's like insane. She can kill people in like 2 shots, 2-3 of her basic attacks, not like moves, but just her basic attacks. And you can see how she cleared the Cyclopses right there. Or if you give her the attack speed, she can just attack so much faster and kill gods very, very quickly that it's insane. As you can see, 1, 2, 3 shots, just normal hits to kill Ra right there. She becomes very, very, very dangerous facing opponents, and is great at usually taking on 1, but she can also run and take on a couple at a time too. Well, that's my list, guys. I hope you liked it. Those are, if you haven't, like I said before, if you haven't checked out Smite, and if you have a PC, check it out. It is an amazing game. It's so much fun. I've sunk probably the most amount of, it's probably the most played game I've ever played. Like, combined with any other game, just because I've spent so much time on it. Matches can take a while, so if you're not a very fond of long gaming sessions, this might maybe not be for you, but if you're a fan of getting immersed in games, this is one. It's completely multiplayer, but it is a very, very fun game, and I definitely recommend checking it out. If you like Smite, leave some comments below telling us about your favorite gods and who you like playing as. Everyone's different. Everyone has different, skills and what they like to do. I like being a hunter personally. I think a lot of people do. That's usually one of the most called positions. And just because that's where you get the most kills. Usually the hunter and the jungler, which are the two most called positions, are usually where you get the most kills. I think that's why people like to play as them. But I also don't mind playing the support. I usually get that role because I don't call all that much. And I don't mind being the support because it can be very fun working to secure a kill and help other people get kills, and really just acting as an assist person. Which is also why I just love Ymir, because he's so good at just getting assists, blocking people, freezing them, all that fun stuff. Well, I've used up a lot of your time. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next episode of Folcon 5. Or on the next Jack 3x2 video that comes out, whichever. Peace out.